ham.
So today's going to be a slightly different video. I thought it would be interesting to talk about ham. I'm going to make a Christmas ham and we're going to talk about the health benefits and health problems of ham. In fairness, it's more about the health problems than the health benefits. Now, we're going to be talking about salt and salt intake, and we're going to be talking about something called nitrates and nitrites and nitrosamines. Now, they're essentially used as preservatives in ham and they're not particularly good for you. I would like to talk about red meat and saturated fat as well, but that'll just make the video too long, so maybe we'll talk about that another time. If you're interested, let me know in the comments and we can think about how and when to do that. The most important thing is the salt intake and the nitrites. Now, salt is something that you're probably aware of. If you have too much salt in your diet, it can increase your blood pressure, it can put you at higher risk of heart disease and strokes and things like that. Nitrites can cause health problems as well. In particular, something that we're worried about is that they do increase the risk of getting cancer. So I am taking the layer of fat off the ham here, partly just because I don't want to eat that much fat on the ham. I don't think that it is nice when there's that much attached to the ham. I like having a layer of fat that's still there, that's why I'm leaving some, and I'm scoring it so that it increases the surface area, helps the way that it cooks, and also it gives extra surface to put a delicious honey and mustard glaze on. I'm not going to get rid of that skin. I am going to cook it separately and crisp it up and make like a ham scratching, so you'll see that a little bit later in the video. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthy thing to do. I'm doing it because it's delicious, not because it's healthy. So let's talk about salt. The evidence on salt is fairly unambiguous, it's fairly clear. Basically, you shouldn't be eating more than 6 grams of salt a day. That works out at about a teaspoon. If you have more salt in your diet, it does put your blood pressure up, it does put you at higher risk of having heart attacks and strokes, so that's the main reason to cut down on salt. The thing is, you're probably not going to put more than a teaspoon of salt on your food overall, but that includes all of the salt that's in your food, so including whether you've cooked with it in, and also processed food, takeaways, things like that. You often get tripped up with that because they can often contain a lot more than you think. Ham, in particular, obviously contains quite a lot of salt. Ham will have about 1.5 grams of salt in 100 grams of ham. So your portion size is going to make a big difference in terms of how much you're eating. If you're being generous to yourself at Christmas, you could well eat 200 grams of ham, and that would be 3 grams of salt, so that's a lot. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this at Christmas, but it's important to be aware when you are eating extra and when you are overindulging a little bit, just to be aware that you're doing that. And if you're doing that once in a while, it's really not going to do you any harm. But if you start to think, well, actually, then that can become more normal, then that's when it can become problematic. So let's talk about nitrates, nitrites, and something called nitrosamines. Nitrates and nitrites are used as preservatives in ham and other processed foods. They're used as preservatives to stop it going off, and also they keep the pink colour in so you don't get grey ham or bacon. It'd still be tasty, but it'd just look a bit funny, wouldn't it? The problem with nitrites is that in your body they react to become something called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines do cause cancer. So basically, processed meats are bad. Ham, I can't really say it is particularly good for you. It's still not to vilify one food. It's not to say that you shouldn't eat ham, but you've got to bear in mind that the nitrites aren't going to be good for you. It comes down to balance and quantity, really. A little bit every now and again probably isn't going to do you any harm, but if you're eating it regularly, then it's really not going to do you good. Having said that, nitrites do naturally occur in some foods. They're in celery and some other vegetables. They're there in a much smaller amount, though. Sometimes you hear people talking about making natural hams and natural cured meats and that sort of thing, using extracts from celery and other vegetables. The truth of that is that if you're having enough nitrites in order to have the preservative effect, it doesn't really matter whether they've come from a lab or whether they've come from some celery. It's the actual nitrite that's doing the damage. So if you've concentrated it enough that it's going to help make ham, then it's still not going to do you any good. It's still going to be bad for you. So anyway, I'm making some other things with it. I've made some coleslaw and boiled some beetroot and just done some potatoes, which is going to be tasty things to go with it. Again, it comes down to balance. I'm not just eating a meal that's a plate of ham. I'm making other tasty things to go with it. So again, it's about balance. So anyway, let me know what you think to the video. It's a little bit different, isn't it? Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you tomorrow.